What's up everyone, it's HK Gaming. Today I have for you the best Pyromancer build. Pyromancer is a class that could be very hard to start off with. If you don't have the gear or the mod, you might find it difficult to farm T15. I personally start off with the volcano rounds using the leftover gear from the Technomancer. I can farm T15 solo with no problems, but the volcano rounds does not do as much damage as the Technomancer, and you will have a problem when you're playing multiplayers using that way. So I've made this fire mage a real mage. You don't need to fire at all, and I mean like shooting type of fire. All you need to do is to cast your spell to fire. This build does not only do a crazy amount of damage, it also helps your teammate to do a crazy amount of damage. This is what they will see. Does that make you excited? I know, right? So let's get started. Let's go over the skills first. The first skill that we'll be using is the heat wave. This is one of the ways for us to apply the damage buff, and it only has like 5.5 seconds of cooldown. And the second one we'll be using is the thermal bomb. This is the second way of us to apply the damage buff. It has only 8.6 seconds of cooldown. The last one is the Ash Blast. It will give you a little CC effects and a other damage buff. So the core idea of this build is just to throw these 3 skills into enemies and the damage will be done. Now let's take a look at the class point. We'll be going for the Firestorm. Yeah, you're right. No Icebreaker, no Tempest, nothing. Firestorm is the one that we want. So we just go with the max health and the cooldown here. We don't need skill lich because our survivability is already enough. The burning and the max health will help us to do that. And we will need that 10% of all skill cooldown. We are mage, we want to cast more spells, simple. And we will not need that ammo and that little 5%. But what we need is the resistance. We don't want to be freeze or ash. That is the thing that will kill us. And that 20% of the burn damage over time is a lot. And what we want is to go up from here. The moment burn ends with the enemy, will apply ash effects. This will give a little extra CC in the battlefield after you use the heat wave. And then we will want to go up from here for the 45% anomaly power after we use the immobilize skill. Since we're going for the Firestorm, we do not do as much damage as the Tempest. So we will need that 45% to make up for the loss. But we will have a much better survivability comparing to Tempest. And our teammate will also benefit from this build. And this is also another anomaly power bonus. 2.5% for each magma golem unlocked. So this is the one. The 10% max health. So we have 5 of them, so that's 12.5 bonus anomaly power passively. Trust me, this is better than going for the Tempest. And we will also need this 45% of the extra ammo after we activate the ignite type of skill, which is the heat wave that we are using. So you can see 5.5 seconds of cooldown, it has a 10 seconds armor buff, so it is like a passive. And then we will need both of this. Enemies with burn effects receive 15% more damage. This will ensure us just to do as much damage as others. And of course we will need that 15% of cooldown with the ignite skill, which is the heat wave that we are using. And lastly, activating the heat wave will increase our armor piercing and the resistance piercing by 45%. This whole Firestorm thing has too many of the damage buff type of things. It's almost like it is not, a tank. I was thinking about the 20% of the extinction, but I couldn't find a good way to spend the class point on this one. If I have a new way, I'll be making another video. But anyways, this is the class point for now. For the weapon, it could be pretty hard to get a good one. We will need the mod from the Death Shield, which is the Fortress. It will give you 43% of the bonus damage based on your armor. And you only need around 41 to 42k armor to get the 43% extra damage bonus. And that bonus applied to everything: your weapon mods, your skill, and your weapon damage. In this case, we're using the Morning Winds. It will do 400,000 damage to the enemies in range of 8 meters. This is a crazy amount of damage, and this is also our major way to do damage. I wanted to dismantle the item to get the mod, but I will need to wait for another death shield to appear before I do that. It's super hard to see a death shield, but it's super easy to see the Anomaly. After I found another death shield, I'll dismantle the weapon and then put the fortress into this 2 Anomaly and use this 2 weapon. And this should be the final weapon choice for this build. So if you have 2 Anomaly and the fortress mod, use it as your weapon. But if you don't have the death shield, you do have a substitution that you can use, which is the Guillotine. The mod Radiation Splash will do 120,000 damage to the enemies. It's not a lot, but it will apply the vulnerable effects, which will help you to do even more damage. But if you play multiplayers, other players usually will have that vulnerable effects applies to the enemies already, so this is not gonna do a whole lot, but still it will do a little bit more damage with that 120,000. But as long as you have the Morning Winds as one of the mods, then you should be fine no matter which weapon that you are using. You just need to have it for both of your weapons. And for the pistol, I do not have a perfect choice for now, so just use whatever and then swipe the Morning Winds into it. And then before you start your game, you know the 5 seconds countdown, you just need to shoot each weapon using 1 bullet. And then when you do damage, just reload and then swipe your weapons. You do not need to fire a single shot after that. And then for the gear, I'm using the Akari set. The best thing about the Akari set is that every enemy damage by the heat wave will give you 50% Anomaly power bonus for 10 seconds. So even though we are going for the Firestorm for our class point, but we'll still do a crazy amount of damage. And the attribute is actually not bad at all. We have Anomaly power and the status power, which is what we needed. The best is to have cooldown reduction instead of the skill life ledge, but still this is good enough already. The extra Anomaly power is much more important than a single cooldown reduction. And then for the first mod, we'll use the one come with the headgear, which is increasing the width of the firewall for the heat wave. And for the second mod, I'm using the Captain Hunter. Increase your damage against elite by 25%. A full combo should help you to take out most of the elites, but some of the elites might take 1 or 2 more hits. I guarantee you will find T15 solo with no problem, and it will be even better if you're playing multiplayers. And for the upper armor, we're using the Akari set. Anomaly power, skill life ledge, and cooldown reduction as the attribute. And then we will swipe the first mod with the branded. Enemies affected by the skill thermal bomb will receive 40% more damage. And the second mod, tidal wave, we can now use 1 more heat wave before it triggers the cooldown. I use this because other part of the Akari set have the maximum health instead of the Anomaly power, not because it has the detonator. Because we are not using the overheat, so it is no use, but that 50% of the cooldown sounds pretty good, so I might find another way to use this set of gear. Maybe I'll make another video. But anyways, this is the mod that we're using for this build, branded and the tidal wave. And for the lower armor piece, Akari set as well, Anomaly power, skill life ledge, and cooldown reduction. And then it has the Anomaly echo as the first mod. Every time we use a skill, we have a 11,000 Anomaly power bonus for 15 seconds. Your weapon damage and Anomaly damage against enemies affected by the skill are increased respectively by 40% and 30%. So Express now does not only do a CC effects, it only applies a crazy amount of damage bonus. 40% weapon damage, 30% anomaly damage, and 40% extra damage with the upper armor piece. If this is not crazy enough already, take a look at the gloves that we're using. Enemies damaged by the heat wave will now take 25% more damage for 8 seconds. 25, there's 40, so that's 65. With that 40%, there's 105% weapon damage and 95% anomaly damage. So everything you do is now double. I don't know if you can find anything better than this. This is crazy. And for the second mod on the gloves, there are a few options that you can use. The one that I'm using is the Attempted Power. Every time you use a skill, it will do a AoE damage within a 5-meter radius, which is equal to 30% of your anomaly power. This includes your Morning Winds mod on your weapons, and with that bonus anomaly power with the Akari set. Even though it is not doing a crazy amount of damage, but still a fair amount. But if you do not want that, you do have other options. You can either use the tier 1 mod for the Thermal Bomb, Fire Frenzy. The skill Thermal Bomb can now be activated one more time before triggering the cooldown. So you will have 2 Heat Wave and 2 Thermal Bomb, a perfect match. So even though there is more than one elite that will require the 40% extra damage for Thermal Bomb, it will still be fine. Or you can use the tier 3 mod, which is the double one. The skill can affect 2 targets now. But in this case, you might find it difficult to hit exactly who you wanted to hit with the Thermal Bomb, especially when the targets are not standing next to each other. So I would still suggest to use the Fire Frenzy. It gives you a little bit more control on the target that you want to hit with the Thermal Bomb. And for the foot gear, you want the Bullet Kindling. Do 20% more damage against enemies with burn. And then the second mod is the Emergency Stand. Even though we are going for the Firestorm, the enemies still hit pretty hard on us. So we will need some kind of protective mod. You know, sometimes enemies can be very far away from you, or can be pretty spread out. You can't hit your skill, or you can't hit a large amount of enemies. In that case, you don't have any ways to heal. But if you're very confident with yourself, you can use the Double Fun instead of the Emergency Stand. And you can use the Fire Frenzy on the gloves. So now you can apply that 40% extra damage buff for 4 enemies at the same time. But the safest way is still to have at least one protective mod on your gear, which in this case is the Emergency Stance. This is my player stats, and I'll leave the gameplay footage at the end. I'm not very familiar with the map Frontline, so it is not the perfect run. I was just going whatever. And it would be best if you're playing multiplayer. Your teammate will love to have you in the team. But I will show you what this build can do in solo, and then you can explore the multiplayer on your own. Let me know what you think about this build in the comment section below. And that will be it for today's video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe. I'll be making more gaming videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
You want me to raise your soldiers' morale? There's no one left.
Now you know the clusterfuck I'm dealing with.
coast looks clear. What the? That's one of our pods. And naturally, it's landed on the insurgent side. Can't really have it. You again. What a waste of your last word.